What's up people, this is Nanath Kulkarni from Picklers and here is a new paddle review at your service. So a while ago I received a pretty hyped up paddle from Neonic Pickleball, the Flow. The reason I call it hyped and you have not probably even heard of it till now is because every small time content creator like myself had used this paddle and loved it. So I thought it was my time to use it, so I got my hands on one. I'm gonna try to avoid stories in this video and let's just dive into the review. The paddle is a pretty boy, and I mean it. I didn't even want to play with the paddle at first because I was afraid I might scratch the edge or even damage the paddle. Now these looks may lead you to think that Neonic is just one of those companies who make fancy paddles and have no game in it, sell coke. But that's not true. So yeah, disappointment. I can't go a video without telling at least a short story or a short fact. Let's dive into the paddle. The Neonic Flow 16mm is pretty cool to be true. As I said, I absolutely love the design. The shape is kind of a hybrid of standard and hybrid face. I'll explain that later. The surface is T700 Torre carbon fiber. The surface really does not add up to the specialities of this paddle. I have used this surface before on my CRBN Power 3X and my bird paddles, and it just doesn't feel like any other Torre paddle in existence which I have used. Now I may not own much Torre paddles, but I have used plenty of them, and let me tell you, these paddles have nothing similar in terms of feel. I mean, yes, they have the same grit on it, but the feel is just different. And the Flow falls in this list too. It's completely contrast to the existing Torres which I have used and which are in the market. One more thing about Torres which I have noticed, even if they don't have the similar feel, they all tend to lose the grit pretty fast. Even if you have a small hitting session with it, it's gonna get dirty. The paddle is unibody design and thermoformed. It has foam injected walls. It's like a perfect paddle with perfect technology, right? And I'm glad that these guys didn't try Kevlar on this paddle, because the existing companies which are actually making Kevlar, or at least the ones which I have seen, they just don't make Kevlar paddles as such. It's a normal carbon fiber paddle technology and they just put Kevlar on it. It doesn't work like that. I think that Kevlar paddles need specific type of build for them so that you can actually use the grit which it has and just not make the paddle a lot slower. Back to the Flow, here are the size specifications. The face is 16.25 inches, even bigger than the CRBN Power 3X. And for reference, the CRBN Power 3X is the exact size of Invicta. Being a hybrid and standard, this has a longer face than Invicta. The width of the face is around 7.625 inches. And this is the interesting part. So the principle of an elongated paddle is just to be long. You can compromise with the width of the face as long as you make it long. But yeah, the Flow is both wide and long, so it's not an elongated paddle as such. I consider it an hybrid standard. The grip of the paddle is good too. It's 5.75 inches of usable grip space, which again is more than the CRBN Power 3X and the Invicta. But it's not ideal for double-handed backhands. I mean, it's good, but not the perfect one. The neck, I think because of being a hybrid of hybrid and standard, the neck just doesn't have enough space for the second hand to fit in. So not the perfect one for double-handed backhands. But the good thing about the grip, it's octagon. A good point for that. Alright, so let's talk about the feel of the paddle. When you have it in hand, it feels very light and nothing like what it says on paper. You can barely feel the drag of the paddle when you swing it. You know how sometimes there is dust and leaves on the court and you try to swoosh it away with a strong swing of your paddle? The Flow is not best at it. On the volleys, again a good hybrid length, so it helps with the quick hands, and the dinks are, to be honest, nothing special. It's very normal for me. And here's the twist, the paddle weighs 8 ounces. I mean, it almost feels as light as the Power Air variants, but here we are. This is pure sorcery. The swing weight which is recorded is around 115, which turns out to be higher than most of the dynamically designed paddles which are supposed to be light. But still, while playing, this feels lighter. Alright, so this is the one bad thing I noticed about this paddle. Again, this is my personal experience with the paddle and this is just what I felt while playing with it. The action of hitting a ball is divided in three parts. It's the prep swing, the contact, and the follow through. When I was playing with my hybrid and even elongated paddles, most of my focus while playing the ball was towards the prep swing. But with lightweight paddles like the Flow, or at least in-hand lightweight paddles, the focus is shifted towards the follow through, which is the swing you take after making contact with the ball. Because the paddle isn't compatible of generating enough power while making the contact, you have to mold the ball's, I'll say, flight or even direction after hitting the contact and in the follow through. And I'm still trying to figure why this happens with lightweighted paddles, or at least the Flow. It's weighted normally on paper, but it just feels way lighter in hand. If you didn't understand what I just said, here is all of it briefed out for you. The paddle doesn't have power. If you have power, the paddle has power. Overall, the paddle is pretty nice, and here are my ratings. Comfort, I give it a 1.5. Volleys, I give it a 2. The drives are 1.8. The tech used in the paddle, I'll give it a 1.5. And relevance in the market, sadly, at 1.3. Just because we have new technology coming up, I think it can be neglected by the amateur players. But if you're trying to go pro or trying to play at a competitive level, this paddle is going to be great for you, trust me. In total, this paddle lands at 8.1. And if you still don't know how I'm rating my paddles, check out my Instagram, you'll find it there. So to wrap this video, a huge thanks to Neonic Pickleball and to you guys for tuning in. See you later.